Can I get both a pilot perspective here, starting with you, Captain Kapai, if I may. You're saying the government must talk. The government is saying the pilots must call off their strike first and then we will talk. Do you see this as a fair response from the government?
The government is saying the pilots should talk. The pilots are willing to talk.
They're saying the pilots must call off their strike first.
Who will call off the strike? Who is on strike?
Tausif and others sitting here.
No. One thing we have to understand, and I'm sure Captain Rudy will agree with me, you can't make a pilot who's mentally unstable or disturbed or
unhappy,
not in the frame of mind to fly. Nor is it advisable to make a pilot who's in not correct state of mind to fly with passengers in the aircraft. Yeah. You're putting their life at stake. Now to say, please come and start flying, who will fly? Sack pilots? The pilots who are mentally disturbed that their brothers, their colleagues are sacked. What will happen to them tomorrow? Do you expect them to fly? Are they in that frame of mind where they can fly? Are we in a position to tell them take passengers, risk their life? It's not right.
Tausif,
first of all, we have to create that environment.
So the environment or the ecosystem has to be repaired first. Absolutely. Before a solution can be found. Tausif, before I take a break, I'll just give. Can you say briefly that you've said it's not just about the Dreamliners, it's about structural issues post the merger that haven't been resolved. You people have also gone to court saying that while the erstwhile Indian airline pilots have been allowed onto the Dreamliners, you are not allowed onto aircraft that they fly. Is that part of the problem?
That is part of the larger problem, that the merger has not been implemented in any manner whatsoever. You see, the merger happened in 2007. We're in 2012 now. Till today, there is no policy that tells you what will be your career in the airline. You see, we all know that we're not getting paid on time. What is it that retains us, that lets us allow to continue to work for Air India? It's the prospect of a good future. Now, when you take that future away by ad hoc decisions, you see, why is it that we were willing to work without salary, but why the agitation now? That's an important question to answer.
Yeah.
The decisions that are being taken now with respect to our careers, they will have a long-term impact for the next 20 to 25 years. You see, salary is an issue, though it hurts us. I mean, we have, as I said, we've got loans to pay, we've got mouths to feed at home. But that's a temporary problem. Like Sandeep said, sooner or later we do realize the government will put in the money. This difficult period, we will tide over it in the next 6 months, hopefully to a year.
But here's the question, will you? And Sandeep, briefly before I take a break, do you take that point that, listen, we were willing to fly when we weren't being paid, so why are you treating us as these spoilt brats? Because there is a kind of label that's been put on them by Rudy and Manish even today, who say, listen, you don't like it here, go get another job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both. There has to be there's no denying the fact that, they have flown without salaries coming on time. And as Captain says that, it's a difficult job to fly without, knowing when your next salary is going to come, how are you going to manage your loan, and still you're flying 200 odd people every day. So it's a tough job. But having said that, I think, as I said that, probably they could have also worked this better from the pilot side.
Wrong time to strike.
Wrong time to strike.
All right, we'll take a quick break. On the other side, Alec Padamsi says, first treat your staff. First treat your staff well, then expect them to service the industry well. Manish and Rajiv Pratap Rudy says, nothing is going to move till the pilots come back to work. Are we looking at a situation where Air India may actually scrap up its international routes? Are we looking at a situation where the political mood has changed? And if it has, what does it mean for the future of Air India? Last comments coming up on the other side of the break. On the buck stops here, the aviation minister says there will be no talks with the striking pilots of Air India unless they return to work. They're not moving either. Where are we going from here? Is Air India sinking? Let's take it back to our panel for final comments tonight. Alec Padamsi, you made the important point about how this was a brilliant airline which has now declined. You also made the point about how it's shameful that an airline where the staff is not paid is still expected to perform. How do you see this present impasse breaking? Do you believe the government has taken a reasonable position that we're just not going to talk, that this is a kind of spoiled tantrum that the pilots are having?
No, I believe that the government is just digging its feet in because it has bungled the whole thing from the time when they tried to integrate two different companies, Indian Airlines and Air India. And since then they've been sort of getting more and more aggressive. I think what they've got to do is first appoint a very good chief executive and stop interfering with him. Appoint a person, a chairman, who will stand against the government no matter what they do, turn it around, and that is the only way to run anything, not just an airline, any company, any organization, and even a family. You've got to have one head who stops. You cannot keep interfering with him and saying this, and that. He has a vision, he puts it across, the board of directors agrees, and they go ahead. Air India can be saved. It's a wonderful, wonderful property. I wish it was my brand, and I'd show you what we could do with it. I really believe
they may ask you, be careful what you wish for. Alec, be careful what you wish for. They may ask you.
Yes, but with conditions that I would be given a free hand, no interference. Certainly not from politicians.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I've got to take this from Manish and Rudy for brief last comments. Rudy, isn't political interference the problem? It's all very well to disguise this in terms of, there are flights needed to places that no private airlines go to. There have been suggestions from corporate chambers that you can have public funds allocated for this by the government, paid to private airlines, making it mandatory for them to do this. Isn't it true that no government wants to give up Air India because every government, successive government, is wanting to control the airline like a golden goose, and the golden goose isn't laying eggs anymore?
Well, I think you are very correct, and it's how the government has been handling the entire civil aviation sector. There are many more issues, and how Air India has been functioning all these years. And I can tell you so many things about Air India, which as an individual who had a family there and otherwise also being associated with this group, and now as a professional pilot when I interact with people. And at the same time, this is the most pitiable stage that all the airlines in this country who are there in India, flying in India, are headed by erstwhile Air India and Indian Airlines. And still we have a company there where most of the employees who have created other airlines who are doing fabulous. And I'm in fact very upset when I met the young pilots who had many reasons when they were correct. What they were saying, some of the things which I knew was happening to them when the young Air India pilots, the IPG people came to meet me. I understand that plight. But the question is, we have to find a solution. The government is not blinking. The pilots are not blinking. Now, what is the solution? So let's find a solution. We cannot keep on going on this for a long while. So someone has to take a call. Let the government take a call or the pilots take a call.
Somebody's got to blink. Somebody's got to blink.
Someone has to blink. And so one doesn't know what is happening there. So this is a question to the government. And you see, in Air India, if the government takes a decision on pilots, there are 50 other things which have to be done with Air India.
Absolutely.
So this is the time. This is the time.
So create this crisis into an opportunity.
So all those, if things have, it cannot be corrected in isolation only with the pilots. Every agreement, every system in Air India has to be ticked and cross-marked.
Can I just take this, Rudy, sorry to interrupt you, short on time, Captain Kapai.
Someone has to do it right away. You can't wait anymore. And the pilots have to be told, I understand their plight, I'm concerned about them, there are many young boys whom I know them personally, but this cannot go on like this. We need to find a solution.
Captain Kapai,
takes a final call.
Captain Kapai, a prescription for solution briefly, and also all this talk or the perception that pilots are pushing for first class tickets. Is that what it's about?
No, not really. This is not something new. I have a letter here which is the Air India's operations manual. Every airline has their operations manual. The DGCA approves it, and it has an extract of DGCA's FDTL, the flight duty time limitation. It clearly lays down that any pilot deadheading on duty travel will be provided first class seat, subject to availability. When it is not available, it goes to the extent of saying that pilot can even demand the manifest to show that yes, there is no seat, therefore he is not being demanded.
And these are DGCA rules?
These are DGCA rules.
Okay.
And I have a copy here with me.
But I think you made your point. In one line, what do you want the government to do now? To talk to them. But would you advise the young man sitting next to you to call off his strike? What would you do? You're a veteran, sir. He may listen to you more than the government.
Looking at the attitude of the government at this moment of time, I think they should.
Tausif?
With an assurance, of course, that everything will be the way it was.
Tausif?
Everybody reverts.
Barka, to answer that question, we're open for unconditional, without any preconditions, we're ready for discussions. That being said, I'd like to make 3 quick points.
Quickly,
You see, we get a lot of flack for being mollycoddle government employees. Air India was nationalized in 1953. For the next 25 years, being a government company, all of us are government employees. till 1978 it was run by the eminent gentleman, the late J.R.D. Tata. During that time it was the finest airline with the best safety standards. We were still government then. What happened? What happened since 1978 was that he was replaced by a succession of political appointees, mostly bureaucrats. That led to the downfall of Air India. The second point about the 30,000 crores, if you give me 5-10 seconds, I can highlight you the examples of gross wastage of money to prove that just equity infusion will not make the airline survive in the long
It's
run.
how it's being run.
Exactly. You know, I'll give you an example.
One example, because I've got to go to Manish for a last comment.
We buy an aircraft worth nearly 1,000 crores. Okay, it is meant to be utilized for the Bombay-New York sector. Where is it flying now? There are 8 of these aircrafts costing 8,000 crores. It is being utilized on the Bombay-Ahmedabad sector, Delhi-Hyderabad sector. My third point, let me make just one last point. The only way to salvage this merger is what is recommended by the standing committee's report made by Mr. Sitaram Yechuri, which is have one holding company, 2 verticals under it. That way what you achieve is synergies of a merger without the headaches of the HR integration, which is incidentally the most successful model of a merger, which is Air France KLM. It's one holding company and 2 companies operating underneath it.
Can I quickly, Manish, get you to wrap this for us? And the point simply is, the pilots have an accountability to their passengers, but do politicians and governments have an accountability to what a mess they've made of Air India?
Barkar, let me make 2 points quickly. You know, you raised this question about the suggestions which were coming from the chambers. You know, allow me to point out that in the telecom sector, you had to create the Universal Service Obligation Fund because private telecom companies were not prepared to go to the rural areas, and it was only BSNL and MTNL which had to be funded out of the USO if you had to increase your rural teledensity. So that point is a complete non sequitur. I agree that you know, things possibly may have not worked out the way as they were planned by successive governments and by successive ministers, but the fact remains that where do we go from here? And if at all we have to have a constructive discussion on the future of Air India, I think the starting point is call of the strike. Government has said, the minister has said that he is prepared to look at all the issues, not only the 3 or 4 issues which they want addressed, but even issues which are beyond that. And I think that's a very reasonable position to take, because if you are prepared to sit across the table, if you are prepared to discuss the report which the Dharmadhikari committee has given, most of the issues which our young friend has raised can easily be resolved, including the suggestion, which I think is very valid, that you can even possibly look at having a holding company and 2 verticals.
Well, we'll have to leave it.
You know, government
Can I make a last point?
looking at all but
10
not
seconds.
with a gun to its head.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
We've been getting a lot of flack for whatever has happened, but one thing that we must get credit for today is that perhaps in the last 6 years, for the first time, BJP and Congress are speaking the same language.
Well, that may have something to do with Rudy and Manish's avid interest also in the sector, but there's an important point being made here. There are different levels of accountability. The striking pilots need to think about their...
We are concerned about you. We are taking this line because we are concerned, and I intervened earlier in the ICPS strike also and got them out of this mess. I would request you all to get out of this mess.
We appreciate that, Mr. Rudy. We appreciate that, absolutely.
So we are talking like this.
Okay, I've got to come in here. I've got to come in here to say a couple of things. There's Professor Dholakia, whose committee has submitted its report in January. We need the government to act faster. There are different levels of accountability here. The pilots to their passengers, the government to an airline that it has sometimes, not any one government, but successive governments have treated as its personal fiefdom. We'll have to leave it there with acknowledging that this is not deja vu. This is an actual crisis moment. And if it isn't converted to an opportunity, this could well be the end of Air India. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Starting with Sandeep Hukan, Captain Kapai, Tawseef Muqaddam, Manish Tiwari and Rajiv Pratap Rudy, Professor Dholakia and Alec Padamsi, of course. Well, that's it on the buck stops here. We'll see you tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.